2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Friendlyjordies Podcast. Do you like this content? Because if you do, we also have the Friendlyjordies Up Late Podcast. Sign up and you get bonus content, which is the way that we were supposed to say that maybe it's not the best way to abuse customers to get them to come and sign up to the podcast, but it doesn't feel right. If you don't sign up, you're scum of the earth. I don't want to have anything to do with you whatsoever.
Cut his camera.
Leave
Cut
me.
his camera.
Cut him off. Cut him
Welcome
off.
to the Friendlyjordies Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to start with the first segment.
It's honest.
My entire news feed today is about this. And if you lived in the 21st century, it would be on yours too. Albo is overseas. Why were we complaining about Scott Morrison going to Hawaii during the bushfires when Albo is traveling all over the world during a flood crisis?
You're right. I'm sorry, Australia. I picked the wrong horse.
You did.
God, you know, there's one thing that I know for a fact. It's that Scott Morrison definitely wouldn't be on a vacation right now.
No, that's right. That's right. That's right.
And the thing is as well, this is the pathetic thing about it. Anthony Albanese is overseas doing official business as the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He is not going to Hawaii.
On a vacation.
And then yet you see it just like trending in Twitter. All these One Nation voters think that they've got one on Albo because they've retaken the hashtag for a brave new world. Not my PM.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's so
and it got-
Dude,
so many people got so angry.
How good's that? Not my PM. A bloke that's, doing, strengthening international ties, and as soon as the tragedy hits, enlists 100 helicopters to New South Wales on the go and puts a lot of time and money into it. Pathetic. That's what happened, right?
Multitasking.
Isn't that what happened?
Wait, so what's the difference? Tell us why we aren't hypocrites. What's the difference between this and that?
Well, you know the really big one, Ale, I forgot to mention this last time, but the Stig drew my attention to this. You know the real-life Ministry of Love, Department of Home Affairs.
Yeah.
You know how that was pretty much just designed by Peter Dutton and investing billions of your taxpayer dollars into making sure no one makes any mean tweets about him? Anthony Albanese thought, well, that's a good start for this department, but I've got a really good idea of where this can go from here. How about with all of this technology that you're using to create algorithms to predict what people are going to think before they think it so that you can message your campaign to them before it's even been announced? How about we use that to better locate ways that we can get people out of flood zones and disaster areas? So that is the Department of Home Affairs job under an Anthony Albanese government now. That money is being used so that we can properly address these crises as they emerge. So he has an entire department that used to be there purely to spy on you that is now helping you in disaster zones.
Clear
Not bad.
labor shield point. You've deflected from the question. The question was, how are you not a hypocrite?
Look, I guess the other
But
thing
also
is
very concerning thing, and I was genuinely very upset when you were saying all of this stuff.
What?
Dude, the idea that
Home
the
Affairs.
it's also about your priorities. You know what? Australia, if Peter Dutton was the Prime Minister, I think Australia would be moving towards like a security state as opposed to a welfare state.
Yep.
You know, there's like a difference. The major priority of a welfare state is to look after the needs of the citizens. Security states also exist. They're just like North Korea. I mean, that's a bad example. There's like other ones that aren't that bad. Like Israel is also a security state in many ways. That the first priority is security and not the welfare.
Yeah.
So I think Peter Dutton would move us towards like an Israeli sort of a...
Which makes a little more sense when you're Israel and you are surrounded by enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virtually landlocked.
No,
Kind
that's...
of doesn't make any sense at all when
Yeah.
you have complete jurisdiction over an entire continent.
And also like
And a big
thousands
one
of
at that.
kilometers of the ocean protecting you.
Minor details, you
Yeah,
know?
minor
Like
details.
all of these things all add up. I think the only thing that I would say that makes it a little bit different is Anthony Albanese isn't wearing a Hawaiian shirt at the moment.
Yeah. I'd say
Yeah, well, how come he's not wearing a Hawaiian shirt?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like the right vibe for the Ukraine
Yeah,
at the best of times.
on like an official trip. So Dominic Perrottet, actually, I was gonna ask you this. Dominic Perrottet was questioned from the media saying like, basically, he was like, Albo's overseas. How are you managing this? You're not getting any help from the federal government. And Dominic actually took a very surprising view where he said, "This is not true. He called me from a location that I can't reveal because it was in a bunker in Ukraine." He didn't say bunker, but he was implying that it's like a classified location. And he asked me when the floods began, it's like, what can I do to help you? How can the federal government essentially help you? And we'll do anything that you need. Sick. So Dominic was like, yeah, he's doing a good job. I think you're making a big issue out of it. My question is, why is a liberal premier saying this about a Labour prime minister?
I think there's two reasons. One, it could be that he's just genuinely thankful for the help.
It is a possibility.
But, obviously not on this channel, right? Okay. The other ulterior motive is that Anthony Albanese is extremely popular at the moment, and you don't want to be sitting there being adverse to him, especially when you're dangling as premier.
That is probably more of it, actually.
Is he dangling as a premier?
Well, I've been talking to Labor, and they're saying it's real 50-50 stuff out there.
No way.
Yeah, they've got a good chance.
Whoa.
Chris Minns?
Minzy.
He's got the good.
And also, Stig was talking to me about this today. That man is amazing at dodging bullets on Sky News. He is Neo against an entire army of Agent Smiths.
Wow.
And he's just
because he's taken the Albo method. Have you seen his from when I look at his interviews or when I watch his interviews? The feeling that I get, I don't know if this is what the general Australian population gets as well, is that he seems to me as like a policy bureaucrat kind of guy who's like, I'm not here to talk about bullshit. I'm here to get the things done. I'm good at getting things done. I don't know if that's the vibe that he's trying to project, but that's how I feel about him when I listen to his interviews. Like, he doesn't have that many opinions about shit.
No.
His opinion is like, how can we do a better job?
It's the new method, I think.
It's bad because he doesn't also have like the good opinions that gets you popular. He just seems like a cog in the machine. I don't know. Like, is that the vibe
I think
that you guys
would
get?
really work for a premier.
I think so too.
Does anyone
yeah,
ever want to see that man on the news unless he's announcing a new highway?
No.
Yeah, but
Not me.
they're on the news
It's
often.
too much airtime for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
The fuck out of here,
Yeah,
Get
more
back
of
to-
Pauline Hanson's.
The real people's, whatever.
Well, that's a winning slogan if I ever heard one. I like Six Lav.
Oh,
Sick.
yeah. Even now, 30% more slow than usual, and I'm already slow as beep. It's not good. It's not, I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I'm not fine. I'm fucked, but like, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
What do you reckon about it?
About Six Slav?
No.
Well, yes. What do you think about Six Slav?
I think Six Slav is not that sick.
Oh, man, Jesus,
man,
a
it's so
divided
brutal.
panel, let alone audience.
No, I like him. I like him being sick. He's more mellow. He gives off the image that he's cooler than he is in.
It's definitely true. If there's one
non-Six Slav.
thing that Miss Love needs to do in life, it's relax.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
So, what do you reckon? Do you reckon that they have a point? This hashtag that's currently trending.
No, absolutely not. First of all, look, I know all tragedies are bad, but can we say some are worse than others?
Yeah, no, some are good. Screw it.
The bushfires.
Fucking hell. Literally two opposite opinions. Go on.
That's why you tuned in.
The
Get to the
bushfires.
truth.
Not that these floods are good or bad. Not that these floods are good, but like the bushfires were worse. And then the prime minister at the time during like a national crisis was holidaying as opposed to going on an official pre-planned visits. So there's a difference clearly. So I think it should be fair.
Well, can I just say too? What is this shit too? Like, it seems like we had fires, then floods. We're just getting out of it, and then we're hit with floods again. Is this just going to happen every year now?
Yeah, I think so.
Why?
And like,
It's
not
annoying.
joking. Apparently, it's gonna.
If this is going to happen every year, I can't live here.
It's
too
not
much.
gonna happen all the time. What's gonna happen is I don't know, but like I was reading this in the news. You're gonna get periods of like rain all the time, like we have now.
Yeah.
And then
Late
like
runoff.
5 years later, you're gonna have 5 years of like basically very, very little drought conditions. So it's
that's
a
5 year
double-edged
gaps, all right.
sword.
Yeah,
Am I
but-
right?
Yeah, that sounds. It's just everything is just going to get more intense.
But 5 year gaps, is that right?
No. You get 5 years of floods and then
What?
5 years of drought.
Every year.
Yes.
That
And there's no such thing as a good day anymore.
That Croatian
My,
holiday house is looking mighty fine right now.
I don't know if Croatia's exempt from this.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're not having
fair
these
enough.
floods. They don't have crazy fires.
They don't?
I've heard. No,
No,
not
they
like
are
this.
now.
Not
by the
like
way. Yeah,
not
I know,
like
but like
this. Not like
Europe
this.
is for the first time
Getting hot. Heat waves.
Well, they're not just getting heat waves, but they're also getting bushfires.
Croatia's fine.
At the moment, miss.
They don't even
This is-
have bush.
I want to tell you this. I forgot to tell you this. How scary is this thought? My brother just came back from Pakistan. One of his
Yes.
friends over there
he married yet?
No, he's not married yet.
Right.
It's one of his friends over there is he's got like massive lands and they're farmers. And
Does he have golden retriever? No, what are they called? German shepherds.
I don't know. Probably not. But knowing this guy. But you know what he was saying? Because you know the economy is like in crisis and the agriculture produce has gone down and most of the sort of news reporting on it is saying like it can be attributed to mismanagement or corruption, blah, blah, blah. This guy was like, none of that shit's true. You know what's ruining our crops? Freaking climate change. This guy's like a rural farmer and he's like, it has devastated us. So we were already on the brink of like, we weren't as efficient because we don't have those like crazy Monsanto seeds or we don't have those next level fertilizers. So we were already not as efficient and we don't have that many large land holdings. And climate change has screwed us to the point where like we can't feed our country now. Like we have to import grain where grain used to be surplus for the past 50 years.
Okay. Is there any good news to that?
No,
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
The bald
That's
man
it.
with the egg is now head of agriculture. That's the good news.
Well, it's like the same thing that happened here. You've got to get the right people in the job. That's the first problem. And I only hope that he can become Prime Minister.
A mute for Prime Minister.
goes to the UN.
In egg we trust. Who would have thought the big turnaround?
I'm the Prime Minister and this is the President.
Dude, and who would have thought? And then they're just telling in the history books, like, who would have thought that the big momentous global shift in terms of policy, global warming, move against neoliberalism was all embodied in the metaphor of the egg. I mean, you know,
Did
before
what Greta Thunberg couldn't
before
do. Wasn't
EG
young enough.
Can you,
That was
can
the
you
point.
just give
before
them the
3,000
context of this egg story while we're on this
no, I'm
day?
still going with the metaphor. Before 3000 EG, before egg, you know, the world was just dismal. And until the egg came, the egg man shifted everything.
It's my favorite story from Pakistan, which was it was the turning point where Ali was starting to get really frustrated with his country and showing us around. And he was sitting there just being like, man, like, it's just nothing fucking runs here properly, man. Like, look at this place. It's pretty much a joke. He's just having this little speech to us. And then this man comes along with an egg, a boiled egg that had already been de-shelled. So he's holding like without the shell.
I would have eaten it.
Yeah, well, you eat Taco Bell when you're sick. That's not that far off from that. It's similar levels of salmonella. And then he says, boiled egg, in Pakistani. And then Ali turns around and goes, why the fuck would I want a boiled egg? And then he goes, I'm just asking. That's his response. I was just asking, just in case.
I'm
on his side. Fuck.
You want to hear more depressing stuff?
He was just
Anyways,
asking.
Go on,
No,
what
tell
is
me,
it?
Tell me.
No, because like my brother came back, so he brought like a lot of material, new material for me. So he said he got his car washed, and he felt bad because 4 of them or 6 of them washed the car. It took them about 15 minutes, and they charged him 250 rupees, which is about less than $2. And he was saying that
Good
labor
deal.
over there is like ridiculously cheap, and he feels bad about it. I calculated it, which makes their minimum wage $1.5 an hour.
Shit.
Do they have a minimum wage?
No, but this is like
Dude,
the
that's
real
only-
minimum wage, because essentially, if you're washing a car, you are doing a minimum wage job, and if
Seems
you're
low.
doing,
Dude, that's only
it's really
that's
low.
only slightly worse than Australia's. Fuck.
Hey, come on. If you're working in like a restaurant there, what are you getting?
more than that, but that wouldn't be minimum wage over there. We're talking
Okay,
about
so that's like
minimum.
having
Dude,
an
it's,
office job.
it's slave labor. It's nothing.
horrible,
It's
it's
nothing.
horrible.
It's slave labor.
Yeah, I was talking to him and like just
Jesus.
sitting there like Westerners and be like, you know what we should do, man? When we go there, whenever we get something, we should pay them what we would pay someone in
Aussies.
Australia.
That's very fair.
And then he was like,
Did he do it?
Yeah, you do that.
Wait. He said
But
that.
there's also this thing of just like, okay, I don't.
He said that to you.
Yeah. 'Cause he was like,
And fuck. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I probably wouldn't do it either, but fuck, don't say it.
Yeah, no, you
more.
just say yeah, and then like you're not going back to Pakistan, so everyone wins.
Yeah,
It's a really easy way out of that. I'm really finding it. I'm really understanding why it's difficult for this man to find a wife. Did
he find a wife?
Understand the.
hey, stop it. Let's not get into that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Why?
No.
Wife segment.
Okay, second
Yeah, Packy
second
wants
segment.
a wife.
Second segment. That's the up late stuff.
Okay, I'll play it. Tune
Up
into
late, you got to tune in because honestly, it's more tales from Pakistan. That's what the podcast is.
Get
turned
on
into.
Patreon. We have 1,000 Patrons, and by tonight we want 2,000. So get on it. How many
Yep.
people are watching? 300? I think we can do it.
All right, second segment for today. Hey, don't look at the headline because you're gonna hate the. But there's been criticism that the title of this article is, "In a time of crisis, labor is choosing to punish the poor." This refers to the new Centrelink system that they're introducing, which I think was something that even the previous government was introducing. But the whole point is like, in order to now get your dole payments, you have to complete, you have to get like 100 points or something, and you get 100 points for different sort of stuff. It's like if the number of job interviews that you go to gives you a certain amount of points. Doing like these courses that make you more job ready gets you a certain number of points, and you have to complete 100 points to be eligible to get your dole. Otherwise, you get F all.
I've heard this directly from the source.
Source. Albo told you that.
Yeah, listen. No, I know someone.
I can't. I got to be short. I'm in a secret location, miss. But
So what
Marrickville, shit, he's good.
All right, so Miss, we'll start with your opinion on this.
Oh no,
first. What do you think?
I was just saying I've heard this from someone on Centrelink. Like, this is a load of shit, but I don't know. I shouldn't start with me because I don't. This is one thing that I know very little about, and I don't have an opinion. I don't know if it's good or bad.
If you were on Centrelink and
Tell
you
me-
had to
tell-
do that shit,
tell
that
me
would be
first-
really hard for someone like Miss Love to do. If he's on Centrelink,
I've done it.
it would be easy for someone like me to do to get these points because I wouldn't mind doing those bullshit things that you get you points. But
Can you explain
you would
what the
just be
distinction
poor.
is? Can you explain what the regulations they've put in mean?
look, it's just to formalize. Even now, before this point system came through,
You gotta get jobs.
there was a time back in the day when you could just show up and say, "I'm unemployed, give me money."
Hey, I was in that time, and it was sweet.
But that point, that thing hasn't passed from 1st of
young.
July, but that shit was like, that had passed some time ago.
Ages ago, and even I was on JobKeeper, where it's like, have you gone for 7 jobs 6 weeks? And I'm like, yeah, and it's like, baker, Top Gun pilot, baker again, yeah, I like bread, cooker, and Top
president
Gun
of
pilot.
Amazon.
It's
I'm
like,
ashamed you
well,
didn't
you've
get
done
that
your-
one, mate.
You've put in the effort. That's the important thing.
So now
So I'm aware of that.
you're gonna have to put it into a software of how many Top Gun places you've applied to.
Software?
They're also introducing like this sort of system that machine learning system that helps them better identify things about you. So it's a
Yeah.
bit
Wait.
futuristic.
So is there almost like an online database of people in the dole.
There already is an online database. They know who's
Well,
getting the dole.
No, but like, okay, that's not what I meant. I mean, like, do you have to log into a website and like put it on a spreadsheet?
Yeah, I don't know, but it's something similar. Maybe not on a spreadsheet, but you do have to log in and do certain things.
It is more annoying, but it's annoying for people on Centrelink, but I understand why the government would do it because it's probably simplifying it and organising it better.
That's their argument.
Yeah. And the fact that Labor's doing it should show everyone who voted for Clive Palmer and One Nation and shit that Labor are fucking the toughest on poor people. Should fucking get on board with them, you dogs. Jump ship, you absolute dogs.
Offset the vote.
Seriously.
Yeah. That's how it works.
what else? What else do they want? Labor's doing everything right.
Okay, the biggest lobby that is saying this is you guessed it right, AUWU.
There we go. All right.
They're the ones that are like
Of course.
even in this article that I was reading, they have like literally a piece of what their opinion is, which is essentially you can imagine what they're saying about it.
Sorry.
That's an advertisement.
I
by
know,
the
but
way.
look at that fucking ad.
That's it. Focus on this.
Sorry.
We'll go back to that.
Sorry.
So what do
I'll
you think?
clean that
well,
up.
you're pretty anti the welfare system, anyways.
Yeah, this guy's a hard ass, dude.
Yep.
He's a fucking hard ass.
See, the thing is, I don't know anything about it, but judging from the fact that it's in junkie and the AUWU is saying that it's horrible, it's just that nice, convenient alliance of people that do no policy analysis whatsoever, that just have their little niche and they just keep shitting on it, and it's all just pretty much because they were taught as kids that they hate the Labor Party because they come from rich families. I think that that's what's happening there, but I haven't looked into it at all, so I can't actually make an opinion on it.
It's just it's kind of shit, but it's part of the bigger story of Australia where these sort of welfare rights, you could almost say, are being eroded. And this is not the Labor Party that's just done this. This is like a long stretch.
And on top of this,
is
it actually even the Labor Party, or is this just a policy that is a rollover?
This is a bureaucratic decision.
Yeah,
I think.
exactly.
So it wasn't
and the Labor
Labor.
Party,
There we go.
yeah.
Labor.
So it
yeah.
wasn't
No,
Labor.
this is me
government.
saying it, obviously, but like these are bipartisan stuff. They're just sort of
Right.
working out how to what they would call more efficient.
Yeah.
But they look. I wouldn't lie that there is a hidden agenda here. They want less and less people to claim those benefits.
Right, yeah.
There's definitely no doubt about that.
How many people are on Centrelink in Australia percentage-wise? Like, what do you think that is?
Less than
I can't remember what it was.
less than you think.
No, I don't know. I don't think anything.
No, but like when you're talking about claiming some kind of welfare benefit, it's like 18% or something.
Yeah, but that's
isn't
the problem. So
18%.
there's a lot of
it? But that's pension, that's disability, that's
okay.
exactly.
everything.
These are like single mother benefits.
Yeah,
like these
yeah.
are things that most people think are just part of expenses.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, I don't have a job.
Yeah. That's
Give
a,
me
that's
money.
that's a very
That's
niche.
and that niche is
Wrong word? I don't know.
is like, I think I might be wrong, but I think I remember reading somewhere it's like 2 to 3% that receive those kind of
Right.
benefits.
Look, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know with this one because
Let's just say this. I reserve judgment massively because of the source and the people that
yeah,
they're quoting.
and that's fair.
And it's the same
I think that's fair.
little network of like loser channels just
Yeah.
complaining and endlessly bitching about things. Keep in mind, this is the same
The media.
organization that, you know, the whole Pantera thing. This is
Panthera.
Panthera. Sorry, but I'm starting thinking about the band.
You almost lost the spell.
Pantera.
Yeah, sorry, Panthera.
Abracadabra.
Yeah, but that was the company that organised Robodebt. These are the ones that said that they brought Robodebt to attention, which is a complete lie. It was Bill Shorten that did that, and they're the ones that got a payment from Panthera of, I think from memory, $20,000, and then denied that they didn't claim the money when it like went into their account. So
Hypocrisy.
just shut the fuck up. Like
Hypocrisy.
these are terrible human beings that like hide behind the banner of the unemployed when they're all rich benefactors from private schools.
Is that proven though?
organise it.
That claim, is that proven?
Yeah.
Or- Okay.
So it's just
As long as you
like,
got the
just
proof.
shut the fuck up. Like, how dare they sit there and talk about the organisation that kept it afloat and also created the welfare state in the first place? And what are they doing? They're just bitching and junkie.
Yeah. Well,
Having said that, they might have a point. Who knows?
No.
But
Hey,
we'll find out once
I
the
think
policy gets rolled out.
Yeah,
I think we'll have the data of like how good or bad this was in like a year's time. So I think
I don't see Labor synonymous as being with punishing the poor.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's really on their agenda.
Didn't they just raise the minimum wage of the poorest
yeah,
people?
they did.
That's a bit antithetical.
But these people are not getting minimum wage because they have no employment.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're not making decisions to, quote, punish the poor, are they?
No. And and
as Ali said, they'll be seeing the data coming in late. And this is the thing that constantly these people bring to. They always say, like, they enacted this policy from 2011 to 2012 or something like that. And it's like, yeah. And then the data came back and they changed the policy. That's why it was from that date to that date.
right.
You know, this is part of governing. You implement things, and if it doesn't work, you change them.
That's what you want your government to be. That's a good government that can recognize where they go wrong and shift gears, as opposed to like, look, Scott Morrison's like his political career is basically dead or whatever. But like that was one of his major flaws. He never accepted his mistakes.
No.
And that's not just like a personality issue. You might think that person's annoying, but that person's a bad leader. You want someone that is able to like, okay, we went wrong over here. Let's try to switch gears and see what else works.
What are people on Twitch saying about it?
Well,
Abuse? The usual.
just my luck. I lost my job yesterday.
Sorry, bud.
Brutal.
That's all right. Just apply for
What
Friendlyjordies.
was the job? Yeah, well, you can always apply. Get self-help. Does that help you?
What was the job? What was the job?
What was it? Come on.
But
Did
you
you
know
hate
what?
it?
You know,
Come on, there's got to be a silver lining here. You can't leave us like that. That's more depressing than the climate change in Pakistan story.
Hey, doing better than the Eggman.
but I think Marilini, you would be fine because
What? Marilini lost the job.
Yeah, because you
Isn't
are
she a mum?
you're not a drug addict, which
Well, let's not
helps
jump the
because
gun.
you get the motivation to do some of this legwork.
It's not jumping
That
the
helps.
gun.
Well, yeah, but you don't know what she does. She could be a meth head. We don't know.
I think
She doesn't seem like
No,
one.
no, I
We've
think
met
she
her.
doesn't
Seem like
think
it,
we-
but it's always
is-
the ones you least suspect.
Isn't
of.
Marilini the one that we met in who worked at HMV or something?
Yeah, I like Marilyn. She was cool.
Isn't that her? Isn't she a mum or something? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's from Toowoomba. Anyways, that's
At Marilini,
unfortunate.
what was it? Did you lose your job because HMV closed its doors finally? What happened?
She's not on the phone with us.
Oh, yeah, that's
you
right.
sure?
Yeah.
Hello, Marilini.
Are you there?
Marilini.
Yeah, we seem to be having some technical difficulties here. Might have something to do
Marilini.
with the fact I'm not wearing headphones. That'd be a good start.
Well,
but-
I'm wearing headphones. I still can't hear her.
Okay,
Marilini.
see, this is what happens when you have the Liberals in for 10 years. They cut the call centres.
Exactly.
No communication.
Carbon. Fiber.
Hey,
Carbon fiber.
speaking of, can I start my fight?
Oh yeah, why don't we
You
do
wanna
that?
start your
Let's
fight?
start.
You
That's
I want to
first.
start my goddamn fight.
Start your fight.
First, introduce your fight.
Actually, I want to show my video. Maybe I'll do that.
We'll do that after
We'll do that
after
after.
that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. But introduce your
Poor
fight.
Jordan with his fights.
All right. I made the fatal error of bothering to look at the comments. The reason that I hate looking at the comments is because there's always like a group niche of people that really have heavy set opinions about something that I can only describe as they never look at the counter side of the argument. I'll give you some very good examples of what we're always fighting about on this podcast, right? China, nuclear energy, the Labor Party. You know, all of these opinions, the ones that I have now, I used to have the exact opposite of those opinions.
Yeah.
And then, you know what happened? I read the other side of the argument. And then I realized, oh, okay, maybe a lot of the things that I'm taught in the press about China are all coming from a think tank that is funded by US manufacturing companies. Oh, maybe the reason I think nuclear energy is a solution is because they have $100 million a year to spend just in the World Nuclear Organization, let alone the NRG or whatever it is. It was a long time ago that I was looking into it. There's a lot of money that goes into these fallacies. Then you go and you ask them, what's your counter argument to these points? Let's just use a nuclear example, right? And you say, okay, they say, there's thorium. All right. Where is it implemented? Nowhere. And it's all a big conspiracy that thorium isn't, implemented properly. They point to somewhere in India or something like that, and it's like they use uranium to enrich the thorium, so it doesn't really work, right? Like there's all these
We are on
miracle,
such
new,
different levels. Come on. I just wanted to make that known. Fucking hell.
But it's just they've
You
got
just
a
go
few
for it. You just go
talking
for it. I'm gonna
points. You
piss.
say, and I've done this a million times before. I'm not going to go through the spiel again
you
because
go,
I'm
you go.
picking enough niche fights as it is. But you say, what are your counter arguments to this? And then they just go back to the 6 main talking points. I swear to God, another one of these is the idea that you can't farm cows in a sustainable way. They always agree that you can farm every crop in a sustainable way and that they just aren't being sustainably farmed. But, you as soon as it comes to cows, all of a sudden, no, it's just this evil that just produces all of this methane and there's no way around it. You just have to eradicate all cows. Something along the lines of that. They always just, Alan Savory is their boogeyman that they go to. And this is one of the classic examples that I got. I got it from this dear listener called Bill, who wrote, farmers in Australia are arguably doing more damage to our environment than the entire energy sector. Yes, why would you say that? I know why, because Cowspiracy said that they are responsible for 51% of emissions, which is a ridiculous number. That the assumptions that they went to get to that level are extraordinary. When you look at the agricultural sector in Australia alone, I think it's like 15%, 17% of emissions in Australia.
Yeah, I remember really old fast statistics, so they might have changed, but they were around 14-15%.
It's around something like that.
Globally.
Well, so it's just kind of the same problems everywhere in the world, right? So that's assuming that cows are responsible for all 15% of those emissions first off, and then they go, oh yeah, but it's also because of the transport sector. Okay, well that's still not getting even close to like 50%. Oh, but it's also the food that they are using to feed the cows, which is the point that Alan Savory is trying to address, which is that you graze them during grasslands and stuff like that. So all I'm saying is that, when it comes, and this is another thing that I remember as well, I used to speak to the Climate Council a lot when I was getting my head around climate policy in Australia. And they were saying that the two big gripes that they have, and these are organisations, not-for-profits, some of the smartest, brightest scientists in Australia that left the government when it became the Liberals because they were like, we can't publish our work, we're going to have to start an independent organisation. These independent institutions, they're all at a headlog about this. It's just someone rings up all the time and goes, "You Cowspiracy, it's all a conspiracy. You're just hiding the facts. The cows are the actual real problem for climate change." And they were saying that is as annoying to them as people come ringing up them and saying like, it used to be hot in the 60s as well, so climate change isn't happening. It was just the other side of the coin when it came to that, right? But anyway, arguably doing more damage than our entire energy sector, which is just completely wrong, especially when you say something about transport, for instance. If you electrify transport, then no carbon emissions. So that's gone. So it's not the energy sector is the thing that you need to focus on because that's where everything else stems out from. If everything is electrified, no emissions from any of that stuff. And we're talking about industry. I think at this point, even when it comes to carbon emissions from industry, I'm going to have to double check this, but I remember that there was special exemptions like, say, coking coal that you still need to get rid of emissions, but they figured out ways to electrify coking coal at this point, making the component that solidifies steel or whatever the fuck it is, right? See, there we have, and then it goes on to this point, which is what they always say, which is that farmers clear forest and that increases carbon emissions. And it's like, yeah, they do. No one's saying they should be clearing forests. And this is always the straw man that they put it in. Oh, I can't believe I even used the straw man. See, as soon as you get into these internet comments, sorry, that's a huge faux pas on my end. I don't want to ever use that word. But, they always say, you're saying clear forests for cows to reduce carbon emissions, which is absurd. What I'm saying is that there is land that is supposed to be grassland that is now desertified. And you know why that area gets desertified? It was because when human beings, no matter where they migrated across the planet, they wipe out all the megafauna. So when Aboriginals came here, you used to have giant kangaroos, you used to have giant wombats that would graze these lands and do the natural role, that they no longer exist because these animals are extinct. That created desertification. The reason it creates desertification is the grass becomes too high, nothing's eating it, nothing's fertilizing it, and so all of these other plants that are in the grassland don't get any sunlight or anything like that, and it just like creates a biodiversity dearth where you just have this taller and taller grass that happens. The soil becomes worse and worse in quality. The grassland starts to retreat. That's how desertification happens. And the reason that is happening is because there are no herding animals over the top of it. It's the same problem in the US with bison. There used to be millions of bison grazing these lands. Now there isn't. This is what created things like the Dust Bowl in the US, right? The Great Dust Bowls. What bothers me is that everyone's always up in arms about building projects in koala habitat, yet farmers are ones clearing all the koala habitat. Well, you just pointed out then that they're not. In fact, the last healthy koala population in New South Wales at the moment is currently getting its land completely destroyed by Lend-Lease. That is the last healthy koala population right now that is a result of property developers. It is not all farmers, and this is the whole thing, is that what I've always advocated is that you have conservation methods in practice to rebuild areas that were forest lands, but you also need to rebuild areas that used to be grasslands, and you can rescind that. You can make land that is now, partially arid or arid grassland again, which is what it used to be millennia ago. This is possible. There are numerous examples of this across the planet. It's very easy to look up. And it's, peer-reviewed studies on this as well. The same industry has been forced to pay workers a legal wage. Yeah. Farmers are terrible. We get it. Every single farmer on earth is a bad human being. This is the whole thing, right? When they're talking about these farmers that are clearing all of this land, you know where the vast majority of that land clearing is coming from? Mega farms. No one who is a serious conservationist is thinking that you should be factory farming animals, especially when, I think I was reading this the other day, I think factory farmed animals feed about 30% of the Earth's population, and yet they take up about 70% of all agricultural resources. So there's a huge imbalance there that happens when you start, industrializing this on huge scales and you do the monocrop culture. No one's advocating monocrop cultural stuff. So that's just completely redundant. There are countless articles and videos debunking Alan Savory's work. Well, there's countless articles and videos that are supporting Alan Savory's work and debunking the videos that debunk Alan Savory. So this is what I'm talking about. People don't look at the counter argument. I did look at the counter arguments when it came to Alan Savory. I've read a lot into it, actually, but this is a long time ago. This is the problem, same thing with nuclear technology. I saw this comment like about an hour before I went on. I was just like, nah, it's not happening. The best report is Grazed and Confused, which I did look up, which debunked the very silly regenerative agricultural fixes, the world rubbish. No, it doesn't. In fact, that, first off, has huge problems because the study that they're basing it off is essentially saying the same thing of like, you're clearing all of this land and then you're putting cows on it. It's just like, okay, well then the study's completely fucking redundant to begin with. I quickly looked it up. It's a 127-page report. But immediately, within the first 11 pages, it starts talking about the fact that if you get rid of land that is grassland, that has grazed cattle on it, and then and you remove them from it, it would have a negative effect on carbon emissions that it currently has now. This is one of the things that it's talking about in the report, if you can just look it up very quickly, right? And then he says, there was this big report, the CSIRO are involved, multiple universities. That's all well and good. The CSIRO are also involved in a bunch of multiple reports that also talk about the need to increase soil quality as a carbon sink and use planned grazing. I know CSIRO scientists that go to these places, say like in the top end and in Victoria, they go to these farms and they learn what they're doing because they have a much better, much more sustainable farms, and the soil is clearly a better carbon sink. I think from memory they were saying that it was like 15 times better soil when they're using these things like holistic grazing, timed grazing, planned grazing, all of all of these things. Basically what you were saying before, right? You're just moving cows along and forcing them to do their natural thing that they do in the wild. And when I'm talking about that in the... Thanks, Miss Love. That's very helpful. One of the big things that they're all...
I fucked it. Just keep talking, I'll fix it.
How have you managed to do this, even when you're not in the frame?
And if this is the case, and I haven't even read the report, but I've just read like very quickly into it and seen the video, and it was just like there was so many glaring problems with it. It was just like, okay, yeah, let's just assume that cows are still dumping all of their waste into like those waste pits that they have in dairy farms, which everyone is saying you should stop doing that and let them just shit on the fields around the place, and that actually does drastically reduce the amount of methane that's coming out. Like it's because it's all stored in one area and it starts combusting amongst itself. It releases much more methane, and then again it gets sunk into the ecosystem. And then the next thing that he says is that grass, where is it? Yeah, carbon is just the roots essentially. It maxes around a few years, and then you can guess what happens to all of the carbon. See, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about the plant, grass. This is not where the carbon sink is. The carbon sink is in the soil. The soil increases in quality, and that's what stores the carbon. It also requires more land use as farmland, which if you check, over 50% of land used is livestock pasture. And what's your point? Yeah, if it's getting cleared, that's a bad thing. But if it's like restoring land, which has happened in Australia, there are numerous examples. We had a guy that was a scientist and now is a sustainable agriculturalist. He was the guy, it's not like this guy is just like, you know, in with big beef or something like that. He spends his entire life trying to get the government to have more sensible policies on pesticides, right? Because he realizes that that's one of the real secret killers, and water quality and all these things. He's a very knowledgeable scientist that spends his entire life going around the planet figuring out what the environmental solutions are and how to integrate agriculture into it. Because this is the insane thing about all of this, right? It's just like, you need to eat. Okay, you get rid of cows and all these kinds of things. The agricultural sector still produces carbon emissions. They can be negative carbon sinks. You know, like anyway, but yeah, and then just saying like I'm constantly surprised at people's cognitive dissonance when it comes to this issue. So this is another one of those warning signs that I'm getting at here, right? As soon as you hear someone say cognitive dissonance, bad take, it's like you know that they're just reading. Or they're not even reading. As this guy's saying, just look at this 8-minute video on YouTube. All right, here's my counterexample, because afterwards he was saying, show me how Cowspiracy is wrong. I'll wait. And it's like, okay, here's how it's wrong. I went up and looked at what Cowspiracy was saying about Alan Savory again, because it was years ago that I watched the documentary, so I wanted to say specifically what it was, and it was so helpful on the website. It was just smug and dismissive. It was like, if you even think this, then there's this article from George Monbiot, or whatever the fuck his name is, right? I remember George Monbiot's article being severely criticised by the scientific community. One of the main things, all his argument is just an extension of Cowspiracy, which is just being smug and dismissive because they refuse to accept that there is a way of sustainably farming these creatures. And one of the things that they went to is these two quote-unquote peer-reviewed articles. I think from memory, one of them wasn't even peer-reviewed. And I think the other thing was one of them was doing planned grazing and not holistic grazing like Alan Savory says. Doesn't matter though, because like, you know, any of these things are better than just keeping them in a paddock and doing nothing, right? Doesn't matter. Here's the point. The main thing is he says that these are the two peer-reviewed studies on this subject, which they're not, and that there are no peer-reviewed studies that support Alan Savory's claims. Not only are there just peer-reviewed studies, there are peer-reviewed studies. There's a bunch of university studies from all over the world that are going around not just holistic grazing, as I said, planned grazing, time grazing, all of these other things. They're all going into it. I'll give you a list of them now. I've shortened a lot of them because I was just trying to get to it. But if you Google these words, you can go look at these, right? Immediately off the bat, dozens of them. I've just chosen a few of them. Grazing management impacts on vegetation. Grazing management impacts on vegetation, soil biotic, soil chemical, and physical hydrological properties in tall grass properties. That's one that supports the idea that you should be moving these animals around. There was another one that was like, I think it was across thousands of ranches across Western Canada. And that was and this was like regarding Holtec, Brisk, and rebuttals by T, Gill, and Savory. That says that carbon can be sequestered in soil. More carbon can be sequestered in soil than is currently put in the air with human activity. This is the same thing as this former woman that used to work at the CSIRO, whose name escapes me. I did a video on it years ago. You can go look it up. I'm talking about this on my Friendlyjordies channel. But again, there's a bunch of CSIRO scientists that say that this is the way to go. But in general, they're just talking about a 20 to 30% methane reduction from air if you start moving cows around in this way. This is what that study was saying. There's one from... There's actually one just called Australia Managing Grazing Landscapes, so right here. And that one says that out of dozens of samples, that this is the one that they always use. I see this all the time. Vegans always put this up as like, yeah, this study said that it's actually has no impact on it whatsoever. And that is such a careful, selective reading of the study, because it's just going, all right, in this one area that we did it, it didn't have any impact on carbon sequestration. This one area. We looked at dozens of areas and it all had a positive impact on carbon sequestration. Positive impact on it. I think that the study was going for a few weeks, let alone years. When they're saying that it's like going to release back into the air, you're talking about one study from that university that is saying, okay, but there needs to be, and it keeps saying it over and over again in the study, there needs to be more research done on this, especially when they are assuming that all of the practices that are currently being used on grazed cattle, so we're not even talking about, these kind of holistic management things, is still in practice. So you're still moving in feeding to feed these animals. There's all of these problems with it. Emerging land use practices, emerging land use practices, you look that up, and it talks about increasing soil organic matter. So we're talking about the same thing over and over again, but this one has the even more poignant point, which is that if you practice these, if you put these practices on this land, it actually sequesters as much carbon as the soil in forest land. Now, I am not saying that you should be cutting down trees to put it on there, but this is the level of regeneration that can happen in these ecosystems if you're doing it the right way. Now, the other major point needs to be stressed. The biomass in the world now, today, is far lower than what it was pre-humans. So before humans, there was just so many more animals that were supporting the ecosystem. The collective biomass of the planet was a lot higher than it currently is. And that was because there was a lot of megafauna in these grasslands that is now completely devoid. This is the answer around it. That's my response.
First of all, that was really good. Secondly, pay less attention to comments.
Sorry, yeah, it's
No.
another one of these things that just angers me so much, because it's like, okay, you can disagree with it, but you're not disagreeing with it on the even the argument that they're having.
Well, I think some of it is obviously mudslinging, saying things like, do you want to cut down forests to do this? That's not what you're arguing. I think eventually the argument between you and this commentator, let's say.
And there's another one here. Jack says, one more, says, the majority of cattle farming in Australia is on land that cannot be regenerated. Not true. The majority, those studies that I was talking about then are talking about regenerating land. The majority is desert-like terrain and has been for a millennia. Well, it's been desert-like terrain for a lot longer than a millennia, but anyway, you're going to reduce methane emissions by 30% in 8 years, not by reducing the head of cattle, but by regenerating relatively tiny areas of land. What? So all of Western New South Wales? Yeah, tiny. To sequester trivial amounts of carbon. As I was saying, peer-reviewed study, 30% drop in methane. Yes, I think that you can do that in 8 years. Yes, that is my opinion. Thank you. So get your cry laugh emojis out of the comment.
First of all, I think someone commented while you were talking about this that this is gold and you should do a video on this on your main channel, to which I concur. Having said that, dude, it all boils down to this argument that you're having. He doesn't trust the data that you're presenting to him, and you are disagreeing with the data that he's presenting to you. So clearly, this is an intellectual difference that you have. But I think you've done a pretty good job at explaining why you are right. And some of these, some of these are bogus claims. Like there's no peer review studies or mudslinging. Like, are you trying to cut down forests to do this? That's not what you were arguing in the first place. So ignore that. It all boils down to him not agreeing with the grazing methodology.
Well, this is the main thing that I just want everyone to get into their minds, because this is the thing where I realize, oh, okay, actually, there's got to be something to this. This used to happen naturally. It has not happened naturally for what, 30,000 years, 20,000 years? That's why there's so much desert in Australia. There's also the fact that, the topography of land clearing that happened in European settlements. So Europeans take the credit for, all the land clearing that's happened since. But the desertification is because there are no megafauna sitting on these grasslands anymore.
Wait, so are you saying that, because I don't know this topic nearly as much as you, so are you saying that the desert lands of Australia can technically be green?
No, not the
without
deep
a
desert.
bunch of water.
Not the deep desert, but those kind of areas,
the peripheries.
Like, the periphery areas, that kind of semi-arid land that starts to expand and becomes grassland. Because that's where the
desertification is happening in Australia, right? Where these semi-arid lands that used to be at one point a lot less arid than they are now, and with climate change, they're continuing to desertify more and more. Yes. So you're saying those parts, let's just say regional New South Wales, yes, as opposed to country New South Wales, can be regenerated.
Yes.
And I would like that. It seems like a small area. That's a massive area.
It's a huge amount of land. I think this study was saying, the one that the CSIRO scientist was saying before, again, she left because of the great retreat of scientists under the Abbott government. I think she was talking about a 0.5% increase in productivity of soil would sequester carbon of all human activity, right? Like, this is big, interesting, earth-changing stuff that can happen. And at the very least, this is the other insane thing. What? You're going to go convince the cattle industry that they're going to have to kill off all their cattle. You're going to do that in the next 8 years, are you?
Yeah,
good luck with that.
That's a
good luck with that. How much better would it be to just come up to them and say, you can make more money and you can make additional crops on your land and you can be paid as part of this carbon offset scheme that's coming in if you just farm your cows in a slightly different way.
Yeah, just introduce those regulations where you have to conform to certain methodologies. But so that video, that Alan Savory video came out, 7-8 years ago?
Yeah.
And he actually did a follow-up on it, which I recently checked out. It was like a year after his speech, but he was saying that what was becoming a more accepted theory, my theory, after my TED video has just, like, it's exploded, the interest in it and the experimentation in it. By this point, don't we have enough examples of success stories or failures?
Surely. I mean, look, you don't even need to look at peer-reviewed studies. You just need to look at all the photos that I've been sent from farmers across the country that are, again, don't lump all of these farmers in with the same fucking things as Monsanto and, like, the bunyip aristocracy of Australia. There are caring... I've interviewed one of them. Very caring... And same with Alan Savory. They're like, oh, you're taking it from someone who has cattle. And it's like, yeah, he has cattle now. He used to be a scientist. He used to be a conservationist that worked with the Zimbabwean government. He went into farmland because he realised, I'm going to start experimenting with this and seeing where it goes. And, like, you could see it. His land, and it's the same with the guy that I was interviewing as well. So, like, virtually drought-proof to begin with. You just look at his land in comparison to all of his neighbours, and it's just desert, arid land with a bunch of cows eating hay. That's what they're eating. On his land, his cows are eating grass.
Have you heard, Angus and Coote? The Coote from Angus and Coote? He had like a sustainable farm experiment going. Do you know anything about that?
No.
Well, I saw a documentary on it, and he was like working with this Alan Savory type character in Australia. I can't remember his name. His first name's Pete or something. Where he had just had a farm that he was doing some unorthodox experimentation to essentially make his farm drought-proof. And his neighbors were pissed at him until he eventually got the Coot from Angus and Coot, who unfortunately is now dead, to sort of sponsor him with his mission. But part of the thing that they were doing was that essentially they were trying to slow down the water that is flowing.
Yes.
And so it just floods the land.
Yep.
And that makes it drought proof because there's more water in the land that comes out later when there is a dry season.
Yes.
So you're less dependent on rainfall.
Yes.
And they were showing pictures of that farm. It was way greener than their neighbor's farm. Like the difference was just insane. What is, so that's not grazing though, but do you think that's also a thing that we could do?
Well, that's also something that scientist, you really should check out that podcast. It's on this channel. But yeah, it was by Bruce Maynard, and he goes around the world listening to talks of sustainable scientists, sustainable agriculturists, and he gets all of those ideas and he puts it on his farm and sees what works and what doesn't. And he swears by Alan Savory and, now that you refresh my memory about that, the slowing water technique. Yeah. You know, these are two very simple solutions.
Dude, wait, Alan Savory, I'll just tell you that much, not knowing much about him, when he talks, the manner in which he speaks, you have to listen to that man.
Yeah, he's good at talking.
He seems like a very intelligent person.
Yeah.
He killed 40,000 elephants.
Yes.
He's a powerful man.
And he admits to that. He says that the land got worse as a result of doing that. And he's saying that it was like obviously he is a conservationist. He did it because he thought this is going to help the environment, and it made the environment worse, and his entire life is trying to make up for that crime that he sees in his head.
Yeah, well, and even in, like, you know, when you see a land that has very few animals on it, it's usually barren. And land that has more animals is usually greener.
Yes.
Now, maybe the animals prefer greener areas.
Maybe.
But maybe there's something else to it. Like, you never see, like, these extremely dead lands that have lots of animals on them because they're eaten away. It's the opposite.
No, it's exactly it, because this whole thing, right? Like, it's a problem that human beings are going to have to deal with, which is the same problem that Alan Savory is addressing here, which is the huge reduction of biomass in the environment, the global environment. There's just way fewer animals than there was. And so they can't do the job that they used to do.
Dude, you know what you need to do, Jordan? You need to make money like Coot did, and then you need to sponsor farms. Farmers that are already doing this stuff, you need to, like, sponsor them. I would love to. But you need more money for that shit. So get on that shit. Start making more money. No, I absolutely
will, because this is the whole thing that when you, like, actually talk to people instead of just watching documentaries on Netflix, you realize that, like, you know, there's some really, really smart farmers that, shock horror, you shouldn't be denigrating because they fucking feed you.
Yeah.
You know, like they actually, like, it's not every farmer that's out there just being like, bloody greenish, fuck them. There's those farmers, and then there's also Muslims. Like hippie farmers.
They're like Muslims. Some of them are bad, but generally speaking, you can't say they're all bad.
Yeah. It's
once in a while someone blows up, but most of them don't blow up. Anyways,
but like the main takeaway from it is, it's about increasing biodiversity. That's the main issue that human beings have to grapple with. And this is something that biologists talk about all the time, which is called plugging. Now, that is what they try. And then, you know, you get these smug responses of like, oh, yeah, like with cane toads. And it's like, yeah, okay, maybe the science has evolved a little since the 1800s. And now they know what animals actually can be compatible with these environments and how they should be regulated.
You know, the only way, unfortunately, there's nothing you can say on this podcast, or there's nothing that you can really do in terms of advocacy that would convince people. The only thing that can convince people of this is by seeing actual real life examples that are economically viable. Like Texas wind farming, Texas was always an oil state. And if people, when they first started introducing wind energy or like sourcing energy from wind, it was a joke for most of their oil-producing neighbors, but eventually they turned around when they saw that, shit, these guys are profitable. Like, they're making money off of this. So I think the only way you can actually get people to adopt this on a large scale is by producing these like sort of isolated success stories.
Which is what that guy does. Bruce Maynard is a legend. He goes across the world, across Australia, to farms that are, he's the Gordon Ramsay of farming. Like he just goes around and he says, this is how you should be running your farm for it to be profitable. And it's always in alignment with increasing the biodiversity. So the animals are doing a lot of the jobs of, again, this study, I saw it, they were saying the same thing, assuming that you're using all of these manufactured fertilizers on the land still, which is, no, that's not what you, no.
Yeah.
There's ways around that.
All right. Well, look, I feel like you're going to get another comment after this airs. And every week we're going to be doing this now.
Oh, yeah, that's what's going to happen.
But maybe you should actually make a video on this. Have you thought about that?
No, I already have done a video on it. And I would just say this, right? Anybody that disagrees with Alan Savory or, the idea of regenerative agriculture as a concept, read the counter argument. You don't even have to read the counter argument. There's heaps of YouTube videos, just like this guy said, of all these people debunking them, right? There's videos that debunk the debunkers.
Look, speaking of truth...
Just see both sides of the argument. It's not that hard before you make up your mind.
Speaking of truth,
I've been
we've got...
with the I've been
Yeah, what was that about? Clearly you weren't so interested in this.
I got like the first few words and I'm not that fast.
But he read a book on it as well.
I did read a book on it, but I'm just not.
And I read one as well, and the name escapes me, but it's in the video that I did years ago in like 2014. And it was again...
Nourishment.
Nourishment, that's
amazing
the most
book.
recent book.
Amazing book.
And then there was another book, and now I can't remember it, but it's on the Friendlyjordies video. And
Great Gatsby.
it's chuck that in. Why not?
It's called like Night of the Whippersnappers or some shit.
No. It's by
Weed Warblers.
someone I think called Helen something or other. But anyway, she is a journalist that was the same thing, spent years just, shitting on farmers, then went and saw some of these farmers and was like, fuck, they're the solution to all of our problems.
Right.
Have you heard, different tangent, have you heard that North Korea, they've got heaps of COVID cases and they're blaming it on South Korea, saying that they're sending balloons across the border with COVID. And that's what's causing it.
I wouldn't put it past them.
I wouldn't put it past them. What do you think? Is that a possibility? Experts are saying that it might be the fact that you're trading with China and China was having huge outbreaks and it might be coming from there. Because, from their perspective, North Korea is like, how can we get COVID? None of our people meet anyone from the outside. And experts are saying it's actually coming from the trade that the border areas with China where you're getting all of your shit from. But North Korea is like, we investigated that and we've debunked it. It's from balloons sent by defectors in South Korea.
Bam. See, this is why you need to listen to both sides of the argument, and realize that North Korea is correct.
And their evidence was that they know a man
Yes, go on.
who touched one of those balloons and then had
COVID?
fever.
Not even COVID.
They don't know if it's COVID. They know it's COVID, but they can't because there's no testing kits. So they're not calling it COVID. They're calling it fever.
Man, I always feel really bad shitting on North Korea.
You can't.
Every
How
time
can you
it's
shit on a country that not only does not have testing kits, barely has any way? You know what's the good thing about COVID for them? There's not that many cures. Like, imagine like if it was like some other kind of disease that most of the world has cures for, but North Korea doesn't. That would be worse. But with COVID, considering there's no cures, like, you're in the same boat as the rest of us, bitch. So like, finally, we're equal. Oh, except they don't have vaccines, so maybe we're not equal.
Oh, no. And you know what else as well?
What
do you bet? The United States is like, we are not lifting our trade sanctions with North Korea. North Korea is a terrorist state.
That's what they're saying. They're like, don't pretend you give a shit about this.
No, come on.
Like
Give them testing. You don't need them anymore.
Saying,
you have vaccines.
They're saying you promise us they're saying you promise us testing kits, but you deliver on military aggression only.
You know what though? Okay, you take away the the balloon argument.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sympathetic with North Korea's response. They're not asking for much.
But dude, like,
They're asking for aid.
yeah, but we found out like a year ago that most of COVID is spread by human to human interaction as opposed to surface. So even if South Korea was sending balloons filled with COVID somehow, the likelihood of them getting that COVID is much less compared to the guy that's shaking hand with that Chinese logistics guy, that probably has COVID.
It only takes one, Ali.
Yeah, I know. It only takes one.
Well, it's so weird. Like, think about how isolated North Korea is. That they're behind on a global pandemic by 2 years.
Shit, yeah. Well, look, here's the other thing. For most of the COVID is spreading like what? This guy probably has COVID right now. Like,
I just wrote that in the chat.
Probably has COVID because COVID is spreading like wildfire in Australia even today. The difference is no one just cares about it. Apparently, we had a total of 10,000 deaths yesterday or today from COVID. That's a big number. 10,000 people.
10,000 deaths.
Yeah. 10,000 people in Australia have died from COVID.
Oh, all up over the last...
All up.
All right, okay.
Which is a pretty sizable number.
Jesus. This is how out of my radar COVID is. To me, all of a sudden, COVID is just like herpes. It's a bit annoying and then...
Yeah, but...
it's just like... the media cycle moves on.
But I don't what I'm trying to now figure out is after getting 3 doses, isn't it just like the flu? Like, people might die from it, so it's that Russian roulette thing. But I can't believe I'm making that Sky News point. But, like, wouldn't you have died anyways? Like, what's like, you've got a really weak immune. Because, man, I know a lot of people that got COVID, and they're just
all
like
alive.
recovered and shit, like including my parents who are old, but because we're like fully vaccinated and stuff. But
I think it's just a thing of what more can we do at this point?
yeah, like what can you do really about it? There's a lot of news stories constantly saying like pay attention to COVID. It's like, and do what? Like, what are we supposed to like do a full lockdown again? Do you know the radical left? And when I say radical left, I don't mean what Sky News calls radical left. I mean the actual radical left, the communists, like left-wing communists, are of the opinion that we should be in constant lockdown for the next 5 years. There's so few that no one really pays attention. But if you go on like the World Socialist website, the Trotskyist website publication, a lot of their commentary is about that. Like, they're still obsessed with COVID, and they're saying that we are doing it wrong. Only China is doing it somewhat right because they're still locking down.
Damn. That does sound like a really communist view.
Yeah, that is truly the radical left's point of view.
And look, I wouldn't really have an issue with it because I never leave my house anyway, but I'm sure other Australians would disagree.
Yeah, other Australians would just... I don't know, man. I think, like...
But here's the other thing. What do they expect happens? Like, surely at some point, society would just grind to a halt in those 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know what they are... They're like Greens. They don't know what they're really asking for. Like, they're just... They're asking for too much.
Yeah, I think they really are.
Because Greens want 70% reduction.
You thought Dictator Dan was bad.
But either way, look, man, I am... This is insensitive, but I've got to that point where, like, I don't give a shit about COVID.
Yeah, I think the whole world's like that. No one cares anymore, do they? I think that, dude, you have an opinion that was very unpopular about 6 weeks ago.
What was that?
Just, fuck it, just let it open. Who gives a shit?
Dude,
but I think everyone thinks that
I'm
now.
going to be freaking honest. That was my opinion when it was at its peak, bro.
Oh, crap. All right, Paul, 5-year lockdown,
you know what?
yes or no?
I will. No, okay. I'll admit to something. When
Miss,
COVID...
are you drinking gin?
Well,
Maybe.
6 left.
All right, I'm kicking in here. All right, this man needs to be on a lockdown.
No!
Okay. Can't be drinking fucking gin when you
fine.
have a cold.
It's
Screw
fine.
gin. Let's do last...
It's fine.
What the Man.
Let's do the last segment.
The communists are right. People have too much freedom.
We're running out of
Jesus
time.
Christ. That is the example right there of why we can't allow people to make their own
I
decisions.
need something to get through this shit. Fuck.
I need you guys.
Can I just have more blueberries?
Well, this is blue.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey,
You've convinced me.
this will bring you back, Miss. They did a research.
That was a great reaction.
A team of scientists did a research to find the funniest joke in the world.
He's back.
There were
Look at him.
60,000 different jokes that were in the sample, and they sent it. They sent questionnaires, and they asked people to rate these jokes. And this joke they said was the most universally liked joke in the world.
Knock, knock.
So they're saying that this is the funniest joke in the world. Now,
It's gotta be a
I'm going to
knock,
read
knock.
this joke. Tell us if you think it's funny or not. It's not a knock,
How
knock
can
joke.
they make it? How can they claim to be the funniest joke in the world?
Well, the data doesn't lie. Now tell us if this is the most universally appealing joke in the world. 2 hunters are out in the woods when one of them collapses. He doesn't seem to be breathing and his eyes are glazed. The other guy whips out his phone and calls the emergency services
I know this, yeah.
and gasps, "My friend is dead. What can I do?" The operator says, "Calm down. I can help. First, let's make sure he's not dead." There is silence. Then a shot is heard at the back on the phone, and the guy says, "Okay, now what do I do?"
Make sure he's not dead. And he shoots. I don't get it.
All right, well, I'm not going to
Make sure he's
throw
not-
stones in this one because
Shouldn't
the
he-
first time I heard that joke in the 90s, I didn't get it either.
Shouldn't you
but I
said-
was also 8.
Shouldn't you have said make sure he's dead? Hence the bang.
No, make sure he's... Wait, yeah, what is it? Yeah, isn't
My
it...
friend is dead. The operator
Yeah.
says, "Calm down.
Make
I
sure
can
he's
help
not-
her."
Make sure he's dead first.
Let's make sure he's dead. First, let's make sure he's
You
dead.
read it wrong, bro.
Sorry. First,
Yeah,
let's make sure he's dead.
He's dead.
Well, that is a real way to kill even the best joke.
But
You
is it the
blew
best
it.
joke? That was a stupid
You
joke.
blew it. Now I'm gonna think about it again if it's actually funny or not.
Can we redo? Should I read it again?
No. It's
That'll help.
It's mildly funny. It's not. It's funny.
But
yeah,
is
it's
it the
funny.
funniest joke in the world?
No way.
This is what happens when you give nerds the power to decide what's a good joke and what's a bad
that's
joke.
mental, dude. The data's wrong on that.
Yeah.
Let me tell you that much. The data is out and it's incorrect.
These guys are the Charlie Pickering of the academic world. They think they might know. They think they know humor, but they don't necessarily know humor.
Well, this is also old. I remember them declaring that the funniest joke
Actually, to be
2
fair,
decades ago.
To be
Really?
fair, they're not necessarily saying it's the funniest joke. They're saying it's the most universally appealing joke.
Okay. Well, that changes
That's totally
everything.
different.
Well, they've labeled that as the funniest joke because if most people in the world think it's funny,
It's the
then it's the
funniest.
funniest one.
I guess so. The
I
most
mean, the
appealing.
eggheads do have a point.
What do you
They're
think?
wild.
Safe. It's safe.
What do you think is the funniest joke in the world?
You know what I think it is? And I think that we were doing this on the Up Late podcast, but I think it's time to bring one of our classic segments from it onto the main podcast so that you see what it's like being a member of the Friendlyjordies Up Late podcast. I honestly think the most I've ever laughed at one of those jokes was one of Ronald Reagan's.
The one that we. Oh shit! I was supposed to do like more jokes of Ronald Reagan.
Don't worry, I've got it. I've got it this week.
Ray?
I did your homework.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now,
Yeah.
or do you want to do it on the upload?
No, I'll do it now so you get the preview.
Okay,
a
let's do
little
it.
teaser.
Oopsie.
Fuck, I've gone blank.
Yeah.
I'm nervous here.
It's all right.
uh,
Take your time.
Jesus, it's so hard to say like this is the greatest joke of all time.
Nah,
It's a big call, but it was Ronald Reagan saying, "Fuck, I can't believe it. I've forgotten
forgot
who's
it?
the head, Fidel Castro." Fidel Castro was making a speech in Cuba about his new policy of deporting a bunch of bums and miscreants to Florida because of our generous welcoming of Cuban refugees. And he was talking about how great this was, and he kept hearing in the audience someone yelling, "Potatoes, potatoes, potatoes," and he kept interrupting him. And so at some point he said, "That's it. The next person who says potatoes is getting deported to the United States." And at that point, the entire audience started saying, potatoes, potatoes, potatoes.
It's not really a joke, is it? It's more of a statement.
It's more of a flex.
Well, I mean, it never happened, so it takes the first point of Freud's theory of humor, which
Okay,
is
that's
that it has to live in a dream world.
Maybe it's the second best joke of all time.
Yeah, look, all right. This is what we're saying, right? Humor's subjective. I think it's the best.
Exactly.
You didn't like it?
It's not really a joke, is it?
I think it is. Yeah, that's a joke.
Is it?
Yeah.
Can I do another Ronald Reagan joke?
Yes, you can.
Not that one that we did on the Upload, which I think is the best one. Sign up to Patreon to listen to that one. But this is another one. An American, a Polish man, and a Russian man were talking. And the American man says, you know, in my country, when dogs bark, and if they bark loud enough, people come and give it food, and then the dog shuts up. The Polish man at that point says, what's food? And the Russian man at that point says, what's barking?
He's a kid. Oh, man. Look, I really like it. I am a big fan of Ronald Reagan's sense of humor because it's just like, here's the moral of each joke. America's the greatest country on earth. Every other country sucks.
I like that.
Yeah, that's all. That's the essence of all of his jokes. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Wait, I had...
You want to do something?
I wanted to, but if you don't
you
Oh, the video.
Yeah, let's
you
do it.
don't
Let's
want
do it.
Come on,
No,
we've got
let's do it, let's
time.
do it, let's do it.
Okay, this is... You want the best joke in the world. This is the best joke in the world. So it's audio as well, but it's someone just sent it to me. So what I'm going to do is, it goes for like fucking 30 seconds. It's a TikTok video. What I'm going to do is... I'm just going to show it to you like this so you can watch it and they can hear it at the same time. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Is that okay? Because I don't know how to download a fucking TikTok video. You know what I mean? I don't know how to do that
You
shit.
can just connect your phone
Really?
to that road so they can hear it without you just putting it into the mic.
How do you do that?
So when I...
It's probably not worth it, but like, it's literally like it's a TikTok. But you can do that. Okay, so if I go Bluetooth,
Yeah, go on Bluetooth.
okay, yeah, it's on. Sorry,
Look
one
for
moment.
Rodecaster Pro on your Bluetooth and...
It's worth it. Believe me, it's worth it.
more suspense than Ronald Reagan's joke.
Yeah, it'll smash that. Which one?
Rodecaster Pro.
Oh, sick. No way. Will it really work?
Yeah, I mean they'll be able to hear it.
That's way better. That's sick.
Connection unsuccessful.
Oh, fuck. Well, we tried.
Yeah, it was a
Look,
good
I'll just
run.
put it in the fucking mic. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
just
really not that big a deal. But it's not, the visual isn't, the visual, I think this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. How's that for best joke? So the visual isn't that important. It's really not. So I'll just show you guys, I'll just show you guys the visual and everyone at home can, everyone at home can play along. All right, so let's make sure this is actually on. Is this working?
This is waking up next to Gordon Ramsay after a night out.
Did you get that? Gordon Ramsay after a night out.
Morning, my darling. How did you sleep? Good. Amazing news. How did I sleep? Not so good, my darling. Why? Oh, I had a bad dream, didn't I? A kitchen nightmare, if you will. What was it about? Oh, nothing really. I just dreamt that I was strapped to a chair and someone was taking a power drill to my fucking skull. Oh, no, wait a minute. That wasn't a dream. It was you. Snoring all through the night like a pig. You're a French pig. And not to mention that before you got into bed, you slung all your shit on my desk, didn't you? You dirty little bitch. Now take your vape and your crystals and fuck off.
He's actually pretty good.
All right. Second after Reagan. That's good. Not bad.
Shout out to Christopher Macy for sending that.
Legend.
Fuck, amazing.
Well done.
All right.
Hey, thanks for carrying the load, that user on TikTok.
Yeah, thanks
Appreciate
so
it.
much. I will watch that video a lot. It's the best I've ever seen. It's amazing. You pig. All right, darling. It's just so good. You nailed it.
Baby, don't say